Executive Outlook. Today, we are joined by Harpreet Khalsa, Chief Data Officer at ECU in Australia. And he's also a co author of the Data Playbook. He leads data governance, analytics, and management reporting and has helped build an insight driven culture that improves planning as well as operations. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Isha. It's been a pleasure to be part of this show.
All right. So I'm very excited to know about your role as a chief data officer in the university and how it has been evolved from managing data to driving the business values.
I think it's very interesting that because I've been in this role, one or the other capacity for the last 14 years, managing data for the university, and the role has actually evolved massively. Like, let's not even go for the 14-year journey. I think even if I look for the last 5 years, the role has evolved so much that it's no longer just about producing insights or reports. The expectations are really around velocity, quality, and diversity of insights that we produce. So it's actually really shifted away from just the data management function to now we are actually the expectation is that we actually become the business partners. So it's not only for me as a chief data officer, but for the whole BI team. The business now expects that that we work with them as a very close business partnership role. All the things like governance, data models, reliable platforms, data warehouse, AI capabilities. To me, this is all given now. Business expects that this is all sorted out with the advancement in the technology. These are not the challenges that they really want to hear. What they are really wanting is that how me or my team can actually work with them in practical terms to really produce practical outcomes that improve the way the organization operates and the way the organization makes the decisions. I think if I have to summarize it, it's really evolved from just providing a single source of truth to building the trusted enterprise data foundations. And now increasingly, it is about enabling the business leaders to transform how the organization operates by using the data and AI.
Do you want to share some challenges what you have got in your career so far and how you have overcome those challenges?
In terms of challenges, I always see that as learnings or I see them as the opportunities. So in terms of opportunities, I can discuss that one of the biggest opportunity I've always identified is the how do you actually really build the data driven culture within the organization. The way or the lessons that I've learned in this whole journey is that you need to start to identify the right people, the champions within the organization, especially at the executive level, but also at the very much like an analyst level, the people who can help you in driving that journey. So that's one of the big lessons I've learned, and the biggest opportunity I still see in a lot of organizations that if you have to really build a data driven culture, then start to identify the right people. The other sort of the opportunity, what I believe that you have in where a lot of these organizations can improve is that when you start to lose the people at the critical points in delivery, and I think that keeps happening across the organizations and across all the projects. And what I've learned is that this is going to happen all the time. There's no way that I can stop this from happening, but the lessons that I've learned is that we really need to start to focus on the broader outcomes and sort of the value that we are delivering to the organization. And to do that, we need to start to build very much like the trusted partnerships with the vendors, so that if people leave, I can actually rely back on my vendors. We need to start to have very, very detailed documentation. We need to have some partnership with the external experts. We need to make sure that the knowledge is really shared between all the team members, so that if someone leaves, there's always a succession plan or a backup plan. And the third lesson that I've learned throughout my journey is that the data, technology, business expectations, none of them is stagnant. The success to this whole role will come when we are continuously improving, refining, and strengthening our platforms, our governance, and our capabilities in analytics and AI. And as a CDO, I've always felt that I need to constantly keep improving my understanding of business and then how the data and AI can support the enablement. So that they have been the key takeaways for me throughout my career.
You mentioned that we need to find the champions within the teams, right? So, what is your take if anyone who is not a champion, but he takes a lot of responsibility and ownership, right? So what is your belief in order to make that person champion? Should we do and put that efforts, or should we identify the ones who are already the stars and performing well in the team?
I think it's a mix, Isha, that if someone has already been a star, I think yes, that's a very good start. You already have a champion over there. And someone who is
Yes.
willing to take the responsibility, I think that's an amazing thing. Like this is what we at times lack. So if someone is willing to take the responsibility, yes, it becomes our, in a way, I see that as a moral responsibility that we have as a data people, that okay, we should give these people an opportunity, let's nurture these people, let's help them with whatever support they need, whether it's the support in terms of giving them the trainings in terms of the data platforms or the data itself, or how the data can be brought together to build a report, whatever they need. But if someone is willing to take the responsibility, I always see it is my moral duty to actually help them to nurture and grow in this space.
And what if the other way around, someone is not willing to take up the responsibilities and ownership? So how you will gonna deal with that person?
I've always believed that we have to lead by example. That's why I keep talking about champions. If the
Mhm.
broader culture starts to improve, if there are people who start to use the data in the right way, as the organization starts to move, then everyone today or tomorrow or day after tomorrow will start to come along the journey. So there are always going to be people who are not only going to jump into this journey, but they will be happy to support and lead with you. And there are going to be people, once something is done, they will come and follow it. And there are always going to be some people who are going to be skeptical, naysayers, but it's okay. We have to just keep doing what is best for the organization, and then everyone will just follow the journey over the time, because as the organization evolves with the data, I don't think a lot of people are then left with the choice to stay behind. Everyone just comes along.
All right, so I just wanted to hear your thoughts. What is your take of it? And thank you so much for sharing that. So moving on, you spoke about architecture and then reporting side of it. So what a data journey looks like inside any organization. So from where we should start it and where we should end it. I know there is no ending, but to define it as a success, where should we put it?
I think if I can start with this, that in reality, the data journey looks no way close to what we read in books. It's not just like some neat pipelines and the data is all clean, and you just go there and start to build the data warehouses and reports, and you can start to build the AI capabilities. The journey is nowhere close to it when we really start to look inside the organizations. So I always compare the journey is almost like the data is like a building a data journey, or a factory is almost like building a refinery. We have to put the crude oil through a whole process, but first you have to build this whole infrastructure, and then you have to have this whole process defined, and then only you can actually convert your crude oil into something useful and meaningful. It's exactly the same thing with the data. There are lots and lots of moving parts. You talk about people, we have to develop people, their capabilities. The technology is always evolving, it's always changing, there's new and new things coming up, and then you start to join that back into the people dimension. The people have to be kept up to date, the training and all that stuff has to be going on forever. And then there is the governance, and there's the data quality, business processes. Everything is changing, and that's only within the data domain. And then when I start to look into the business context, the compliance is always changing, the user expectations are changing, our systems are changing, and how the operational people are putting the data into the systems, that is also changing. So inside the organization, the journey is very different, but you have to really start to pick up your battles like on an annual basis. Like, where do I feel that this is a point where I'm really weak this year? One of the examples I always give is like, what is the strength of a chain? The strength of the chain is the weakest point. If I've got the whole chain that is made up of the steel, sort of these hooks, but one of the hook is the plastic one, the strength is actually the plastic, not the steel. So as a leader, I need to start to understand that what is the weakest point in my whole data chain this year. So that's what I then keep picking up. Okay, this year I need to pick up governance because that's where we are weak. Okay, we improve it. Next year, maybe, oh, we've got this whole LLM and we've got this whole AI coming up. Okay, that's great. So this is the focus for me for this year. I need to develop people, governance, technology. It's not that you drop everything else, but it is just what gets more increased focus. So this is, I think, every data professional will, or the leader will have their own ways to analyze these things, but this is to me is the most important thing. You cannot work on everything on day one. You need to start to pick up your battles and build those things. You cannot even drop everything too. You cannot say I'm focusing on this and let everything else drop. So this is where the challenge comes. How do you actually strike the balance between all the things, but you're also constantly keep improving one thing at a time. So your weakest point keeps becoming stronger and stronger over time.
Yes, definitely. I do. We should not have too much things on our plate. We need to move step by step. Let's complete that and then take it, and also prioritize in between that. Is it really important? Are there other things that we can prioritize?
One thing, if I can say, is like as a leader, we should stop having these knee jerk reactions.
Hmm.
Just because someone came to me, oh, I need this today. No, we should actually take a step back. Why do we need it? How critical is that for the organization? Is this going to have the longevity from the organizational and the strategic priorities? So we have to always take a step back and really think about a bigger picture and do the right things from the organizational point of view, as opposed to where my personal biases start to come in and I may say, oh, I should do this or that. No, I need to always think about what is the bigger picture, not only for my team, but more from the organizational point of view. Where are they going to get the best ROI for the investments they make in the data space?
AI technology is also not that much stable because every new week, new things are coming up. And so if we'll start implementing it, the new things are coming, other model is coming, different things are coming. So we need to plan in a way that should be stabilized at the moment, which we can trust on and we have a reliability on.
Totally agree with you. And this is the biggest challenge as a leader, because the operational people will come and say, oh, this is really good. We should actually use this tech to solve this issue. And then genuinely after 15 days or 3 weeks, they will realize, oh, this wasn't actually the best thing. Now there is something else in the market, and now there is something else. So it's not that the people are not guiding you in the right direction, but the pace of change is so high that it becomes very hard to really understand, like, should I wait for another 2 weeks? Is this the right time? Will
Is it?
waiting give me actually a much better option, and which is far more economical and far more accurate? So this is where that whole challenge with the AI is coming up.
What does the practical governance look like as a company, and where should the company start this process, at what stage, at what level? So please share your thoughts onto that.
I think in some ways we were lucky that because we had been doing the data journey for a long time, so we already had some informal practices developed within the university on, like, if I feel the data is not right in the report or in my data warehouse, we already had some really good relationships with the data owners, the data custodians, and everyone. Even if there was no formal process, we knew how to go and fix this. But then there came the time that we knew that this whole informal process is not sustainable, because we were growing at a scale and our data was actually becoming much broader and broader. One of the lessons that I would want to share is that please don't start your data governance journey with technology, and then don't assume it is all about tech. So the way we started was totally other way around. We actually, in fact, first started with the data governance policy. The first thing we brought within the university was that, what is my data governance posture? We agreed with the executives that what sort of policy we need, and then we formalized the policy. As we were going through the policy, the data owners and everyone started to say, oh, we cannot govern each and every element. And that was such a good feedback, because now they knew that, okay, this is all going to become very formal. We need to manage the data in a much better way. So we, as a university, introduced the concept of critical data elements as part of the policy itself. And then we actually started to design the whole framework for how do I know what is critical and what isn't critical. So that was all based upon the usage, the compliance, and financial value of the data elements. Once that was done, we actually went to our IT governance committee and started to formalize all the data governance roles. So from this point onward, this is what the role of this chief data officer is going to be. This is the role of the data executives. This is the role of data owners. This is what the data stewards, custodians, data assurers. So we started to formalize that. Once that was done, we started to then put the names to these roles, that who is going to do what for what sort of data, who is going to do this for student, who's going to do this for HR and finance. Once this was all formalized, at that point, we started to bring the tech into the place. Then we went out and said, okay, this is what our requirements are. This is how we want to enable the governance. Now let's start to see which technology platform is going to enable it. And we had a very good idea. We had already, by that time, we had documented 60 or 70 data quality rules. So we had already documented first before we went out. Then we knew that, okay, this is how these things are going to look like. These are the sort of things I really want to test in the platform, and I want to see how the issues are escalated. We wanted to practically see that how these things will shape up in the tech platform. So that's where we then did that part. The other thing then, what we started to work with the CIO, who is my boss, and that was, we were very fortunate because we are part of the IT, so we can work very closely in that sense. We started to bring the change in the way how we actually create the new tech projects. So we made it almost mandatory that anytime we are implementing a new tech project, the data governance and quality are going to be part of it. So from the day one, we'll start to define all the data governance roles for the platform. We'll start to define what can go wrong with the data. So we will automate all the data quality rules and everything from day one. As the tech is going live, all these things are also going live, which has actually started to bring so much of focus and work in this whole data quality and governance space. It's actually like it's something that I had never imagined that it will actually bring so much of work for the team, but also the stakeholders are now actually becoming more and more aware. And I feel very much like a bit of a thing of a pride for that whole data governance team that now it's not they going out and asking for, oh, what can we do? It's actually now business coming to them and asking, oh, can you do this for us? But it's also, I've seen some of the presentations that business has started to put together on what benefits are they having from data governance. So it's not a boring thing for us. It's not just a compliance thing for us. But I don't know if it was that approach that we took on how we actually came from the policy and then to the tech. Obviously, that would have played the role, but the whole ecosystem of how our executives look at the data and how our stakeholders and champions who we already had in place were looking at this whole journey. I think this whole ecosystem really helped us to build a very strong case around the data governance.
Amazing. When you started building that policy of data governance, so you define the honors, you define the roles. What else you have included in that policy?
Oh, the policy is very high level. The policy doesn't go like it only says maybe I think the data owners. The whole data governance framework sits outside the policy. The policy is more about very high level things that how the university is going to treat the data. Like the data will be treated as an asset, and we need to have the identification of our critical data elements, and critical data elements need to be managed through the technology, and we need to make sure that our CDEs are of good quality. So it's only talking about very high level principles that how do we need to manage the data governance. But the actual data governance framework, the roles and responsibilities sit outside the policy.
So when anyone builds any dashboards or reports, how should they should design it so that it should be adopted by the business?
And that's very interesting. You know what? I'm of the view that there should be very less dashboards done by the actual data teams. I actually believe in full self-service and autonomy of the business to develop the dashboard so that they're actually used by the business when they're actually developed by the business. So again, like from our perspective within our university, we have a very, very highly self-service model. The role that my team has been playing for the last 4 or 5 years now is more about that how do we actually help them to get all the good data assets, like how do they get all the documentation around it, like all the data glossary, the what are the rules that went behind it, and then they can have all the sort of the understanding and documentation on how to build the dashboards from here. So it's not that we are not building dashboards, but in the last 3 or 4 years, our team has been actually doing around 20% of dashboards of in comparison to what we used to do 4 years ago. So we have been constantly and deliberately coming down, and we have been asking business to do it, and we have been training them to do these things. And as of now, I think I've said this in many places, we feel very much as a matter of pride that most of the highest used dashboards are not done by us. They're actually done by the business itself. So that's where I feel that this is where the adoption becomes very easy because business knows exactly who are the people who need this information. They exactly know what information they keep asking for, and they're the ones who know exactly what decision is there that needs to be made. So yes, we do the dashboards. We understand the business quite well. We work very intimately with the business, but we still keep promoting that if you really want the success of these dashboards, the more you build it, the more successful they will be.
So your responsibility then limited to data availability. The data should be available in the format they need it, and then they can go right. So
Yes, up to a point, but we still build the dashboards. It is still our remit to build the dashboards, but we try to keep reducing it, and then we try to limit it to the point that where it's a genuine enterprise dashboard, like where you're having to deal with the multiple functional stakeholders, where the dashboard cannot be owned by one sort of the area. So that's where we still play a very active role, but still we are increasing our role more in the data governance, data quality, the data engineering, the data warehousing, and making sure the documentation, all the glossaries and everything is available to them to actually really start to use the data.
I agree with these things because they build it, they have that sense of responsibility, and then they use it. Otherwise,
They,
one of the problems is that dashboards are built, but nobody is using that. So that is a very core problem in data.
it's also the sense of pride, Isha, is what I always feel. The people who build it, they will also, yes, with the sense of responsibility also comes that sense of pride that we have built it. And when the other business users come to them, like if a data owner access build the dashboard, now if they are serving such a big function and then people are coming to them for the information, they will actually just point them towards this dashboard. So it helps them too. So they are actually helping us promote all these dashboards that are actually developed by them.
All right. So, anyone who is new into the career of data, analyzing data and stabilizing that system, so what is one advice that you want to give it to them in order to make the strategy for the data implementation?
One of the things that I always keep telling to a lot of the data people is that don't confuse data with technology. They're two different things. Like when I talk to data people, they keep telling me, "Oh, I'm good in this tech, I'm good in that tech," but oh, the tech will come and go. The data has been there for much longer, and when we even see it, the technologies that are very core to the data, like Oracle and SQL Server, and then how we actually model the data and how we structure the data, they are actually far more stable. So that's one thing. Like, please don't confuse data and tech. Yes, we need the tech to actually bring the data together, but the data is still a different thing in my head. If I really want to be a success, start to think more from the business person's mindset, because the data is really an asset when it starts to get used into the decision making. So start to focus more time in understanding why are they collecting the data? What made them collect this data in first place? What decisions are they making? So if you remember, like used to be called as the decision support system, which I always feel was such an appropriate naming to this whole thing, because at the end of the day, all the BI capabilities we are making, anything that we are developing is actually enabling the decisions. And even if I focus on the word BI, it is, even yesterday I mentioned it to someone saying that it's actually called business intelligence. So the whole reason why we call it business intelligence is because my business has to start to become intelligent. And how will the business become intelligent? When they start to make smarter decisions in lesser time. So that's what the data people need to focus, how the decision quality improves and how the time taken to make the decision actually starts to reduce. If that's what the data people focus, I believe the tech is the easier bit. So that's the advice I keep giving them. Just focus more on business, the decisions, and how data enables it. The how part, the last part, like how I make the dashboards and then how I use the tech, that will all start to fall in the right place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are solving the challenge and we are making it intelligent. So we'll always get to know how to structure it, how to do it. So
Yes.
that comes at the later part. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. And really, I have taken a lot of things from this discussion, and it was all valuable. And also got to know so many things into how to set up the policy of a data governance, how to implement it, and what should be the step by step role, and what makes it different. So that was a turning moment for me.
You just get it from experience. You just get into the organization, and especially if you can serve a bit long in an organization, that really helps you understand that what's the best way to do something new in this organization rather than going to the book. I think your intuition is going to guide you that this is how this organization will adopt the new things, or it will adapt to whatever is coming new. But that's where I think the trick is. The longer you stay, the more culture you understand and the more easily you're able to navigate through all these complexities.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Isha.